The information you're about to see is designed to provide you with training in the use of the patented point repair system from Infrastructure Repair Systems Incorporated. Once you've successfully completed the training, Infrastructure Repair Systems Incorporated will issue a certification in the use of this patented point repair system. This trenchless system is currently used in 31 states and Canada. The repairs you make will not only save money, but will be permanent and are generally stronger than the host pipe. You may ask, what is a point repair? A point repair is a permanent structural repair of a specific length and diameter. As an overview to today's training, we'll be providing you with information on the repair of a break or leak in your sewer by the insertion of an inflatable carrier into a nearby manhole. The carrier is wrapped with an epoxy resin impregnated fiberglass reinforced mat. The carrier and mat are pulled into the line and positioned in the area in need of repair. The carrier is then inflated for approximately 2.5 hours to allow the epoxy resin to cure. Once the curing process is complete, the carrier is deflated and pulled from the line. What's left in place is a permanent structural repair, literally a pipe within a pipe. This training from Infrastructure Repair Systems Incorporated is not intended to provide instruction on hazardous materials handling or confined entry techniques. You should contact your supervisor for proper training. Now that you have an overview of the point repair system, we'll take a look at everything that comes in the kit. The kit comes complete with the following. You're going to get a packing slip which will detail everything that comes in the box. You may want to compare the packing slip with the contents, and let's do that right now. We have a pair of mixing sticks. You're going to mix the resins with these mixing sticks. You'll also use these for the facial pressure procedure. We also have a pair of high-quality chemical protective suits. Important for you to wear your protective clothing in the application process, and in addition to that, 5 pair of high-quality rubber gloves. Make sure you use these. You get a nice pair of high-quality goggles. Important for the crew member who is going to enter the manhole to pull the carrier through to be wearing these goggles. You're also going to get the visqueen cloth, which is right here. This is the 2 mil visqueen cloth, and that's to help you to keep the area that you're working in nice and clean. We give you the 6 mil plastic sheet, and this is going to be cut to size and used to wrap the carrier for protection from the epoxy itself. To spread the epoxy, you'll get a pair of 6-inch spreaders. These are perfect for spreading the epoxy. You'll get the waterborne conditioner, which is right here. The waterborne conditioner is a natural releasing agent, and that'll be smeared onto the carrier for protection. You're also going to get a pint of natural solvent, and this is what you're going to use to clean all of your tools. The repair mat is right here, probably one of the most important pieces. It's patented pre-cut fiberglass and felt repair product that will create that pipe within a pipe. You're also going to get 10 cleaning rags. These are important to keep everything nice and clean around the area. You're going to get the resins. You get the 1 can of the A resin and 1 can of the B resin. Of course, the B resin is the activator. You're going to get the MSD sheets. These are the material safety data sheets. And very important, mixing instructions for both warm environments and cold environments. We refer to this device as a carrier, sometimes known as a bladder or a plug, and this is made to our own specifications. It's important to note that it has a very special pulling head which will help to navigate the entire carrier through any offsets in the sewer system. Also important to note that the actual working area of the carrier begins 14 inches from this silver band, so it's important to keep that in mind. The working area, again, is 14 inches from the silver band. That's where it begins. The carrier is also flow-through, so it's rare that any bypass be required while making a repair. The carrier works by being pulled into place after being wrapped with the epoxy resin impregnated mat. The carrier is then inflated with air to a specific pressure. The carrier remains inflated during the cure-out phase, which takes approximately 2.5 hours. After the cure-out time, the carrier is then deflated and pulled from the line. The proper layout of your job site can help make the mixing and installation of the repair much easier. First, find a dry and flat area near your entry manhole. Lay out your 2mm visqueen drop cloth adjacent to the entry manhole and secure it on the corners by using road cones or other items. If hot or cold conditions exist, placing a barrier, such as a sheet of plywood under your visqueen, will help control the temperatures. Lay out your hoses and ropes so that they will not become tangled when the carrier is inserted and pulled into place. Connect your air source to the portable air tank and place the air tank next to your carrier. When this is done, you should fill your air tank. Then, connect your mixer and set out scissors and tools within easy reach of the crew. Using a can opener, a crew member opens the B-side resin and pours it into the A-side bucket, being sure to scrape all the B-side out. Mix it slowly and thoroughly for 2 minutes. With 1 or 2 crew members wearing protective suits and kneeling in front of the repair mat, another member now pours a generous amount of epoxy resin down the center of the mat. Crew members then vigorously spread the epoxy resin using long, even strokes, being sure to saturate the mat completely. No white area should be showing when the wet out is complete. After wetting out one side of the mat, crew members need to pick up and flip the mat from the near edge, end over end, and repeat the wet out procedure. Crew members should always leave a little extra epoxy resin in the bucket. This extra epoxy resin will serve as our control, confirming that the cure process takes place. This control epoxy resin will go off or smoke in approximately 20 to 25 minutes after it is mixed. Just before insertion, it's time for the assigned crew member to run to the far manhole and be ready to pull the carrier into the manhole when instructed to do so by portable radio. The carrier is picked up and carefully fed into the manhole, mindful not to drag or scrape the repair unnecessarily while inserting. After the curing process is complete, the carrier is deflated and pulled from the line. The sewer is then televised once again to ensure the repair is complete and in its proper location. Before inserting a repair into a sewer or storm line, it's important to first televise and clean your line. Cleaning the line will remove any dirt or debris that could prevent your carrier from being positioned in the wrong location. Proper cleaning of the line will also prevent damage to your carrier when it's inflated. The televising of the line will provide visual confirmation that the line is in fact free of all debris. We'll also use televising to determine a hard mark, which is the exact measurement from the manhole to the center of the area in need of repair. Of course, before we can actually make a repair, we must first find the specific location of the damage in need of repair. Locating that spot is referred to as finding your hard mark. When televising, position the camera in the center of the area in need of repair by tilt and panning at 90 degrees. With electrical tape, mark a spot on the TV cable line at the edge of the main sewer entrance, where the sewer enters the manhole. Remove the camera from the sewer and run it down the street to create a straight line. Using your 100-foot tape, measure the distance from the camera lens to your hard mark tape. It's important to write that number down. This distance is your hard mark. After each end of the carrier is connected to your ropes, measure and tape that distance on your trailing rope, using electrical tape to mark that distance. In most circumstances, you'll want to measure from the center of your carrier. This will center the repair over the damaged area. It's important to remember to remove this tape after the carrier is pulled from the sewer to avoid confusion with future measurements. In some situations, such as a service line near your damaged pipe, You may need to measure your hard mark from one edge of the repair. This would allow the placement of the edge of the repair mat next to and not blocking the service line when the repair is inserted. You've been provided with 2 reels of 5/8" propylene rope, 600 feet in length. One of these ropes is to be strung between the 2 manholes using the hydro cleaner. The 2 ropes are then fastened to each end of the carrier. Once the carrier is wrapped with the epoxy impregnated resin, it's then pulled into place by hand and inflated. When possible, it's recommended the carrier be pulled into the sewer going with the flow. Before we can put a repair into the ground using the carrier, we must first establish what is called the full facial pressure of the carrier you are using. This is done by connecting the air hose to the carrier and inserting the carrier into one end of an 8-inch diameter stick of PVC pipe. The carrier should be inserted into the pipe no closer than 14 inches from the silver band on the carrier. The carrier is then slowly inflated using your portable air tank. The objective is to determine how much pressure it takes to just allow the carrier to come in equal contact with the pipe. You determine this by inserting and reinserting a stir stick provided in the kit. This stick should be snug but removable at various places around the carrier, for example, 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. Now, note the pressure on your portable air tank gauge. This pressure is the facial pressure you'll be using. When making a repair, you'll be inflating the carrier to 4 to 5 pounds over full facial pressure. This provides the optimum amount of pressure to the repair mat. The facial pressure is different for each different diameter of pipe you are repairing. Also, like a balloon, the amount of pressure it takes to inflate will change. So, it's important to recheck your facial pressure often. You must increase your carrier pressure when your repair is below the area water table. The distance the sewer line is below the area water table is called headwater pressure. It's important that you know how far below the water table your repair is. One way to determine how far the sewer is below the water table is to measure the distance your sewer line is below the moisture line found in the manhole. When dealing with headwater pressure, you must add 1/2 pound of pressure for every foot of headwater. Using the waterborne conditioner that comes in the kit, coat the carrier by hand. This protects the carrier from coming in contact with any epoxy. Place the carrier on the edge of the 6mm visqueen plastic sheet. One end of the visqueen should line up on the band. Using the scissors, cut the visqueen to measure from one band to the other. Next, wrap the carrier with the visqueen, securing it with masking tape every 12 inches. On the lead end of the carrier, the end that goes first into the manhole, secure the hose clamp provided. Now, wrap the clamp with duct tape as well as all rope and air hose connections for protection. With a felt pen, measure and mark the center of your carrier. Infrastructure Repair Systems Incorporated uses specially designed combination of fiberglass and felt along with a layer of webbing to give Infrastructure Repair Systems repairs the highest quality and structural integrity available. This combination of materials is only part of what puts Infrastructure Repair Systems Incorporated far ahead of its competition. The repair mat should remain clean and dry in its plastic bag until ready to use. Lay the mat with the patented Velcro straps lying over the carrier mesh side up. This side will be the first side to wet out. The green strings, also a patented design, should be pulled out and cut 1 foot beyond the pulling heads of the carrier and tied together in a knot. The repair mat should be marked at the center using a felt pen. This center mark will be lined up with the center mark made on the visqueen at the center of the carrier. This mark is the spot your hard mark is measured from. There are times when your repair may be placed on either end of the carrier, so it might not cover a service line in the sewer. This shift of the mat on the carrier must not place the mat any closer than 14 inches from either metal band on the carrier. When shifting the mat on the carrier from the center line, it's important that your hard mark measurement be taken from the proper edge. Before you start mixing, it's very important to take a moment to go through a safety checklist. This important procedure can be the difference between success and failure. Are all your hoses and ropes connected and taped for protection? Are the hoses and ropes laid out in a manner that will prevent them from being entangled when the carrier is pulled into the line? Is your air running and your portable air tank full? Are your tools within easy reach of the crew members? Are all area crew members properly suited and ready? Have you checked the temperatures of the resins, and do they match with the instructions for mixing? When the answer to each safety question is yes, it's then time to mix the resins. Your kit has been provided with either a warm or cold environment pre-measured amount of resin that's specific to the size of the repair that you're performing. It's important that you know the temperature of the resin and the curing agent, also referred to as the A and B side resins. The time it takes for the chemical reaction to begin is directly proportional to mass and temperature. The more mass, the faster the cure. The higher the temperature, the faster the cure. Now, when you're ready to mix the two resins together and you're in a warm environment, there are a couple of important points to keep in mind, and all of these points are covered on the warm environment mixing instructions which are included in the kit. The first and most important thing to keep in mind is that the two resins must not have a starting point temperature in excess of 75 degrees. You gotta keep in mind that the temperature that you'll be working in the environment, especially on a blacktop road, could easily exceed 100 degrees or more. But it's critical to keep these under 75 degrees. How do you do that? You can put the buckets of resin in another bucket of ice to keep them cold. You can even keep them in the air-conditioned cab of a truck to keep them under 75 degrees. Again, important to note, the temperature of the environment is going to have a direct effect on the time it takes for the curing process to complete. The hotter it is, the faster the cure. All right, so place them in a bucket of ice or put them in the cab of an air-conditioned truck. Once you begin the mixing process, you must mix thoroughly for 2 minutes. When you mix the A and B side resins together for 2 minutes, a chemical reaction will begin which creates heat. Before you start the mixing process, it's important that your epoxy resins not exceed 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're working on blacktop, the temperatures on the ground can exceed 100 degrees. This heat can accelerate the curing process. These conditions will have a direct effect on how much time you have to wet out and insert the carrier before the curing process begins. Using a can opener, de-rim the B-side resin, the curing agent, and pour it into the A-side resin. Make sure you use all the B-side resin by scraping the inside of the can. Slowly and thoroughly mix the resins together for 2 minutes. After thoroughly mixing, check your resin temperatures. Let the resin reach 80 to 85 degrees before pouring it onto the repair mat. Now, when using the repair process in a cold environment, it's important to follow the cold environment mixing instructions very carefully. One of the most important things about the entire process is that the resins must be at a starting temperature of 75 degrees. Now, that's maybe difficult to do if you're working outside and it's 30 degrees outside. How do you do it? Put these both in the cab of a heated truck or inside a warm building, but get them started at 75 degrees because the outside temperature and the carrier temperature is going to affect the curing process. The colder it is for the carrier, the colder it is in the environment, the longer the curing process. In cold environment conditions, you must maintain the resin curing agent and liner at 75 degrees Fahrenheit before the mixing process. The ground and carrier temperature can lower your resin temperature and extend your curing time. De-rim the B side, the curing agent, and completely empty its contents into the A side bucket. Mix it thoroughly for 2 minutes. If the outside temperatures are between 35 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit, wait until the epoxy resin temperature reaches 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. If the outside temperatures are below 35 degrees Fahrenheit, wait until the epoxy resin temperature reaches 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit before pouring it out onto the repair mat. When you're checking the epoxy resin temperature, be sure to take it at the center of the bucket. With 2 crew members wearing protective suits and kneeling in front of the repair mat, a third member now pours a generous amount of epoxy resin down the center of the mat. Crew members vigorously spread the epoxy resin using long, even strokes, being sure to saturate the mat completely. After wetting out on one side of the mat, crew members need to pick up and flip the mat from the near edge, end over end, and repeat the wet out procedure. Crew members should always leave a little extra epoxy resin in the bucket. This extra epoxy resin will serve as our control, confirming that the cure process will take place. This control epoxy resin will go off or smoke in approximately 20 to 25 minutes after it is mixed. First thing you do is take the far end of the repair mat and bring it to the center of the carrier just like so. Bring the near end up, and then one of the most important things is to make sure that these holes line up with one another. You line up the holes and then smooth this Velcro closure across the top here so that you don't get any gaps here in the repair mat. All right? Now you take the ties and you insert them through the holes, and this is to make sure that the mat does not separate. Just put it so through like that. Cinch them down. We'll do it on the other side as well. Put it right through the hole. It's important that those two are matched up so that the mat does not separate. And we'll cinch this up right here. All right. Now we're going to lift the center of the repair mat. We're going to roll the carrier and we're going to tuck as we're doing it so we get a nice snug fit. We'll take the Velcro tabs here and we'll snug them up nicely. Do the same thing with the center one. Snug that up nicely, and with the third one as well. It's at this point you'll want to get a pair of scissors and trim off the excess of the tabs there. The last thing you're going to do is take the 4 green strings on either end, tie them together, and then secure them to the pulling head. You do that on both sides. The mixing team members will now place the carrier on the impregnated mat at the established marks. Reaching over the carrier, the spreading crew members bring up the far edge of the mat and align the Velcro strips from one end to the other. On each end of the mat, there are holes punched that must line up. Insert and tighten the plastic ties that are provided. This will help to ensure that the mat remains Velcroed together. At this point, the crew members must lift the mat from its outside edges and roll the carrier back towards their knees while folding the excess mat material forward neatly. Pull and secure each Velcro snap snugly, being sure to tuck the fold of the mat evenly to ensure a tight fold. At this point, the excess Velcro straps need to be trimmed and the green strings securely tied to the pulling heads of the carrier. At this time, the pulling crew member should be in place and in radio communication. It may also be necessary for one crew member to assist the insertion by entering the manhole. The carrier is lifted and guided into the manhole, being careful not to rub or scrape the edges unnecessarily. The crew must communicate to the pulling member via radio on how fast to pull. It's important not to pull the carrier past your hard mark. Good communication between crew members is important. Once the carrier is in place by identifying the hard mark at the edge of the sewer entrance, the carrier is then inflated 3 to 5 pounds above your established facial pressure or any additional pressure required because of headwater pressure. This may take several adjustments until you can stabilize your air regulator. During the cure time, it's possible to disconnect the compressor from the portable air tank. Now be sure not to disconnect the air from the portable air tank to the carrier. Because of the flow-through carrier, it's possible to put the portable air tank, hoses, and rope into the manhole and leave the job site. However, this procedure depends on sewer flow and policy. Once the carrier is inflated to proper pressure, the cure time will be approximately 2.5 hours. This time can vary based on outside, sewer, and mixing temperatures. During this time, you should constantly check your regulator pressure. Once the proper cure time has elapsed, the air can be cut off and the carrier deflated. Make sure to bleed all the air from the line. Crew members will then pull the carrier out of the sewer by using the rope. This may take a little force at first to budge the carrier. Pulling the carrier out will invert the protective visqueen and allow for easier removal. Once the carrier is removed, it's important to televise the line to verify the repair is installed in the proper place. This is also a good time to record your aftershot. We want to thank you for taking the time to watch this training video and want to remind you that if you have any questions at all, please call your infrastructure representative. That telephone number is 877-327-4216. We have full-time chemists and all kinds of support personnel ready to answer any questions you may have. Even if you're out in the field and you've forgotten an element of how to use the process, call us and ask, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks again.